Welcome in Tim Bielik. Tim Bielik is from cleveland.com, and Tim is a guy who specializes in the SPARK scores for players. It measures the speed, strength, agility. It's basically, I love this, the SAT for athletes. It's a way you put a numerical value on somebody's athletic ability. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik. Tim, tell us a little bit about the offensive tackles and their SPARK scores. How'd Jedrick Wills do on the SAT for athletes?
Wills did very good. He was number 6 in the 72.0 percentile, which is just about that above average area. Tristan Wirth, number 1, and that's no surprise considering what he did at the combine, that 4.8 plus 40 time, the incredible leaping ability, a 99.1 percentile. Absolutely incredible athlete. Second on that list was a guy that people were linking to the Browns that they were going to trade down, Ezra Cleveland, 91.7. Third, Austin Jackson, who went to the Dolphins at 18, 83.3. So a pretty good amount of athletic offensive tackles in this group, and 3 of the top 6 already gone.
When you look at some of the guys that scored higher in other positions, who did that? And particularly, let's look at linebackers and safeties, because those are 2 areas that we think the Browns may be looking at day 2.
Absolutely. And I mean, Isaiah Simmons was the guy that I think everybody was talking about was going to be an outstanding athlete. Percentile around 98. Now, again, I say around because the numbers we get are incomplete because Simmons didn't do all the drills at the combine. But then you look at safety, like you talked about, another need for the Browns. There are 2 guys to watch, I think, at day 2 that stand out. Jeremy Chin of Southern Illinois and Kyle Duggar of Lenore-Rhyne, both smaller schools, both around the 99th percentile, which is absolutely incredible athleticism. And if you're going to be a small school athlete, and if you want to make it into the NFL, you have to be a really, really good athlete, and those 2 guys clearly are.
Tim, is there any differentiation in the scores that you come up with based on what size school or where they play?
No, it's all about athletic figure. It's all about the size, the height, and all those different things. It's just all about different testing, and it's more positional, I think, than school or anything.
You would think those numbers, particularly for linebackers and safeties, have some relevance, just because you want guys that are able to get from point A to point B, have explosiveness and strength when they do it. Do you have some other? Those were safeties that we talked about. Do you have some linebackers that we should listen out for too in day 2 as well?
I don't know if he's going to make it to day 2, but Patrick Queen of LSU looks like the top linebacker right now, number 5 on the board of SPARK, on the SPARK list at 83.8. If you're looking for more day 2 guys, Willie Gay of Mississippi State, 2nd with 98.1. Willie Harrison, the Ohio State linebacker, 6th at 77.2. And where he shined is in that 3-cone drill. He put up one of the better times in there. And remember, this is a former basketball player, so that agility really showed out. And it did well for Harrison, who I think should go off the board tomorrow night.
How long has this SPARK score been in existence?
Well, I've started kind of digging into this around 5 years ago. It was kind of the 2016 draft when Ricardo Lewis and Seth DeValve were taken. A lot of people I don't think really kind of were thinking about that too much. It was something that I kind of did research on and discovered that apparently it was something the Seattle Seahawks had done for a while to try and kind of find some steals in the later rounds. And obviously that's how they built one of the better defenses of modern football, by hitting on some late round picks that they were able to do. And this certainly is a measurement that probably helped out to find some of these guys, because as we all know, late round picks are extremely hard. It's pretty much a crapshoot at this point. It's just part of another measure that I think teams are trying to use to kind of take some of the guesswork out of it and hopefully find yourself a gem down there, because I'm sure you got to believe a better athlete's got a pretty good chance to stick versus a less talented athlete that has similar skills.
And that's where you help fill out your special teams. It's got to come. The more information you have on them, the better off you're going to be.
Well, the other thing is I think you alluded to it initially. The smaller school guys that you can't really project. Well, what would this guy do against Alabama? But what you can say is he's really athletic, and if you put him on the field, he's not going to be overmatched by people based on athletic ability. I think that's kind of the way teams view the SPARK score, and I think you're absolutely right with Chin and Duggar. Those are 2 guys to keep an eye on, because their SPARK score will put them at least on the board and in the thought process.
Definitely. I mean, athleticism translates more than anything. Yeah, the competitive level definitely is a change. I think that's where, jumping up from the FCS or Division II, like these guys are going to have to do, they're going to notice it in the practice field right away from day one, because all these guys are getting drafted like Jedrick Wills. It's hard enough to jump up from the SEC to get to the NFL. If you're talking FCS, that's several more levels. In Division II, that's another level that you have to jump up. So having that athleticism makes that transition a little easier, I think.
What about wide receivers? That's another area that is pretty deep in this draft. And when you look at it, who are some guys to pay attention to that the Browns might be looking at day 2 wide receiver-wise?
Well, one of my absolute favorite guys in this entire draft is Notre Dame's Chase Claypool, the 6'4", 238-pound, tall receiver out of Canada. He's number 3 on the Spark list, approximate 98th percentile. He doesn't exactly play the same game as DK Metcalf, but athletically he tracks out in a very similar manner. He had a very good 40 time, jumps very well. His production has gotten better and better as his career has gone on. I think he's a guy that, when I wrote about sleepers to watch, when I talked about receivers earlier in this process, I know the Browns and Kevin Stefanski like going with 2 tight ends, but Claypool's an interesting guy to me because with his speed, I kind of think if you want to use him kind of a pseudo tight end or even add 15 pounds to him and convert him into a tight end, you can certainly do that because he just has incredible athletic ability. And he may be raw, but he's a guy that can be a jump ball specialist, at least I think early on.
Well, the other thing is you've got Beckham, you've got Landry. It'd be nice to have a big target in the red zone, which Claypool would be somebody. Tell us more about some of the guys you liked as sleepers. You did write the article on sleepers. Who are some guys to keep an eye on that you think might be sleepers coming up next 2 days, really, for the Browns?
Well, when I look at safety, obviously talked about the 2 small school guys, Chin and Duggar. When I look at linebacker, Malik Harrison sticks out. They want to go for that in day 3. I look at the composite big board right now. There's not a lot of guys that are like way lower down on this board that have come off the list. So you're looking at a lot of good safeties that should be there in day 2, a lot of receivers. And this is a draft where I think receiver could be a position that going into the 4th and 5th round, you're going to see the guys that normally in other drafts would go 2 rounds earlier. And another guy I like at receiver, Van Jefferson out of Florida. Maybe not the most athletic guy, but what he is, he's a precise route runner. And that's another thing the Browns could definitely use as a guy who's precise, knows how to get open, and just a guy that Baker Mayfield can find open and get into football quickly because he's able to just get open.
Tim Bielik, as always, we appreciate the insight to some names to keep an eye on based on their athletic ability, the Spark scores. Tim Bielik.